Welcome to r/malicious compliance, where we share stories of people conforming to the letter but not the spirit of a request. And today we have 4 great stories, so subscribe, hit the like button, and let's begin. The first story. In a call center, a lone tech support agent used not ready mode to manage overwhelming call queues, but when management insisted they stop, the agent complied by accepting all calls. The second story. Nanny faced challenges with an unruly toddler due to the parents' conflicting instructions, leading to a hilarious tale of malicious compliance and the eventual consequences for the parents. The third story. Challenged by an inmate, I report his verbal abuse, leading to a harsher punishment than I initially suggested. Today's first story is management was not ready for my compliance. About 20 years ago, I worked in a call center at a budding payment processing company. The main performance metric was the time service factor, TSF, which required answering 80% of calls within 20 seconds. Due to a constant queue of calls, achieving this goal was impossible. Customers were unhappy, management was unhappy, the stage was set. Enter tech support. I was hired fresh out of high school to be the call center's sole tech support and handle customer-facing application migrations. In retrospect, they basically brought me on as a project manager and systems consultant, but I didn't know any better. Unfortunately, our telephony system did not direct callers based on specialization or skill sets, so when customers called in specifically for tech support, there was a 1 in 15 chance of getting a lone tech support agent. Instead of investing in more tech support staff and overhauling the phone VRU, menu, management decided the best system was to have representatives physically line up at my desk. It was frustrating and extremely overwhelming to balance my migration projects and the queue of callers that were waiting for me. So I adapted by remaining in not ready as much as possible. Not ready means your line will only ring for direct calls, but only my team had direct line. Things were going smoother in terms of handling tech calls, people were lining up less, but management was not happy that the TSF goal was not being met. Then one day, my lead pulled me aside and confronted me with my telephony stats. My not ready times were 10 times everyone else's, to which I reminded them that I'm the only technician, and if 14 other people were lined up at my cubicle, then they're clogging the lines with people on hold waiting for me. Management did not care. I had a special skill, but I was not special enough to be exempt from the metric. No more not ready. Cue malicious compliance. I pretended my not ready button no longer existed, and went about being a rank-and-file call center rep. The moment I was done with one call, I had to pick up the next. This meant during migration waves and outages, there were moments where my entire team was lined up at my desk waiting to transfer their callers to me. After about 10 to 15 minutes of just seething by my cubicle's window, some began to confront me. I explained that I was forbidden from using not ready to keep my line open. The call queue would have to die down completely until my line was open to accept a transfer call. You could cut the tension with a knife. TSF continued to tank. Then call abandon rates skyrocketed. Customers were unhappy. Management was unhappy. So management did the obvious thing and hired more technicians, right? Right? Nope. First, the new protocol was to post a sticky note with the customer's callback number and ticket number on my desk. Tell the customer to expect my callback, hang up, then take the next call. From then on, I was expressly only allowed to conduct the callbacks when there were fewer than 10 callers on hold. Second, they took 2 of the regular call center boomers and sat them with me to job shadow. Third, they tasked my lead with standing over my shoulder to observe my daily activities. What I showed the team lead was that for every 2 to 3 tickets I closed out, 10 more callback tickets would roll in. What he actually ended up doing was reprimanding me for having a high RONA, rollover not answered, count, because I'd let some calls roll over if they snuck in while I was doing morning callbacks. Abject dismay. The nightmare finally ended with the mortgage crisis. Management's brilliant business acumen had led the company to insolvency. I jumped ship to complete my college education. Then the company shut down about a year later. Edit. I've now about 20 years in this industry in a real systems consultant role. What my prior employer really needed was 4 to 5 techs to help during migrations. 3 FTE, maybe one of them would be a senior/level 2, and 2 temp contractors to push us through migration waves. We also needed a dedicated and experienced project manager. Hiring an 18-year-old high school grad for 2 major product migration rollouts was a horrible play. Lastly, a proper VRU with skill set setups to route calls efficiently. Physically lining up people at each other's desks is ridiculous. You impressed me with your difficult situation and your strong-willed perseverance, as well as your ability to withstand the conditions created by incompetent management. You were the only technical support specialist in a large call center, but you were not allowed to stay in not ready status, which led to a backlog and dissatisfaction for both customers and management. Your reaction to this, exercising criminal obedience, was interesting and vulnerable to the situation. You simply followed the new rules and worked like a normal call center employee, and this resulted in a queue that was always free, and everyone was waiting for you. It seems that the management showed their inability to solve problems and did nothing to make your job easier. Even after the problems with TSF and the number of abandoned calls got even worse, they did not provide additional staff or make any other changes. I guess they got what they deserve. I hope you found a better job. The next story is The Tale of the Maliciously Compliant Nanny. I've been working in childcare for a long time, 20 years to be exact. In that time, I've been a babysitter, a nanny, a preschool teacher, and mother's helper for dozens of families. I have many certifications and great references that always tell my prospective families I know what I'm doing and should be listened to. Well, I was job hunting again and found a family a bit outside my area, but they were willing to pay me pretty nicely. Still well below what I'm worth, but times are tough and I'm understanding. They said their daughter had been pulled from school due to health issues and needed some discipline. So I decided to put on my super nanny hat and take on the challenge. I love to turn nasty toddlers into lovely kids. It's my specialty. So I start day one with this little girl and hoo boy, I had my work cut out for me. I was given 3 objectives. Make sure she potties. Her health issues were kidney related, so this was super important. Make sure she washed her hands, due to her compromised immune system, and make sure she picks up her toys. Easy enough, right? Absolutely not. So I'm at her house a grand total of 1 hour and it's time to potty. I ask her first, can you go potty? Met with a resounding no. Okay, new approach. You need to go potty. Cue the waterworks, screaming, crying, fighting me. You'd think I'd led this child to a killing floor at a slaughterhouse. Well, I'm trying to talk her through how we can do whatever she wants if she just goes potty. Well, while I'm making progress, Dad comes downstairs from his office to console her and tell her she doesn't need to do it. Okay, fine. Well, it's time for lunch and she needs to wash her hands. Cue second freak out of the day. I'm trying to explain to her why we need to wash our hands and that she'll eat as soon as she's done it. We went back and forth for about 10 minutes before Mom comes out and hand feeds her so she doesn't have to touch the food. Anytime a parent comes out, the kiddo starts bossing them around and getting her way. After lunch, she becomes inconsolable. I ask her when her nap is. They tell me she sleeps from 4 to 6 p.m. and doesn't sleep until midnight and is up by 8. I'm sitting here going, a toddler needs way more sleep than that. I try to reason with them that she's not an adult and cannot make it through a whole workday without sleep. They push back. So we have 2 more days of this. Screaming, fighting, undermining by Mom and Dad. So on day 3, I have a talk with them. A come to Jesus moment. Hey, I can't change anything if y'all are walking back everything I try to do. And they hit me with, well, you should try to get her to like you first, then she'll listen to you. And I really wanted to say, like she listens to y'all, but I bit my tongue. They told me point blank to just do what she wants until she likes me, and then start enforcing boundaries. I tried one last plea to tell them that's enforcing the behavior that we're trying to correct, and it'll take longer to right the ship. Nope, do what she wants. Okay, let's go. Day 1 of malicious compliance. Dad has an important meeting and needs to not be disturbed. Toddler decides she wants Papa, so I go, let's go get him. He said you can do whatever you want today. I'll race you up the stairs. So we run up the stairs and she bursts into his office while he's on a client call. Toddler decides she want Mama, so we go burst into her office and drag her into the room to play. They're now both being forced to play by this little tyrant, and every time she tells me to leave, I do. They keep trying to call me in and distract her, but she keeps saying go away and I go, it's what she wants, I gotta do it. They're getting visibly annoyed. So now this child has gotten everything she could ever want, and once again, immediately after lunch goes into thermonuclear meltdown. I say offhandedly, I bet she's tired. There's a very certain tone to an overtired cry, and 20 years of experience has gotten me to the point of knowing exactly what that sounds like. Dad scoops the toddler up and takes me outside to have a talking to. So while this guy is explaining to me how I do my job, I just sit there and shake my head. He tries to tell me he knows his daughter better than me, and he'd know if she was tired. I just smile and look at him right in the face and go, oh yeah, she's asleep on your shoulder. She must have been tired. If only there was someone who knew that. When he realized the crying had stopped and she was passed out on his shoulder, the look of most utter defeat was on his face. He tried to walk it back and tried to find ways I wasn't right. Couldn't find it. Funny, it's like I know kids or something. I spent 3 more days in my vicious, malicious compliance. The parents were haggard. I thought we were going to get somewhere. Then when she hit that overtired time after lunch, they tried to send me to the library to get the screaming kid out of the house. In the same breath as telling me to make sure I sanitize every surface she touches, they tell me don't buckle her into her car seat because she doesn't like it. I quit on the spot, then immediately reported them to the service I worked with. I do believe they've been fired as clients, and CPS might have gotten involved. But all I know is they had 4 work days they had to make up at night once she fell asleep, which, remind you, was at midnight. So I feel like I got my perfect revenge. Perhaps this family can find a way to establish discipline in their child. Otherwise, they may become dependent on it. Many parents have a tendency to want to be friends with their children, dreaming of a perfect reflection of themselves on Instagram pages where they portray a happy and perfect family. But the reality is quite different. For children, their parents often become a limitation. It is the parents who are constantly saying, no, you have to eat what you have, stop hitting your sister, don't throw toys in the potty, you can't smoke that. For a child, this may seem like their life is limited by rules. This does not mean that you have to physically punish your child, but it is important to set boundaries and rules. If you don't, the child may take over and control the family dynamic. The third story is, Write Me Up, I Dare You. So I work at a jail as an officer in a direct supervision jail. Basically, I'm in the pod with them when they exit their cells. Where I am, an officer typically supervises between 30 to 80 inmates on a given day. Now, as anyone in corrections can tell you, certain inmates like to talk SH. Some of them talk straight diarrhea out of their mouth. This is usually amplified during lockdown periods when an officer who isn't assigned to their pod is doing rounds. Personally, I get a lot out of this, as I work the swing shift, and I basically fill in wherever an officer is needed that day. After over a year of working at this job, I developed a pretty thick skin to pretty much anything you could think to call me. Now, the biggest way to deal with inmates who don't listen is to write an institutional charge, which is basically just a written document saying this guy broke the rules. There's a charge for harassing staff, which is mostly used to slap wrists when somebody won't stop talking SH when they should. On this particular day, I was coming through a pod I had been in a few days ago to do count up everyone in a pod to make sure everyone is accounted for. An inmate who I had written up then saw me and started tossing insults my way over what he thought was just me trying to get him personally in trouble. Truth be told, I was happy to write him up because he was generally annoying, but I didn't single him out. Most of what he says is the most generic insulting stuff you end up hearing, mostly a lot of B and P, which I largely ignored because I'd heard it all before. Before leaving the pod though, I hear him call out, "You know what? I dare you to write me up again." As an officer, that particular statement is a bigger statement than a normal dare. It essentially means I don't care about your authority, so I want you to write me up because I'll get away with it. So I just said okay, and I very visibly wrote down everything I had actually heard him say before leaving. All the while, him still yelling at me. So at the end of my shift, I wrote the report and left. Fast forward to today, when his hearing came up. I wasn't personally there, but I did receive an email as a typical follow-up. The hearing officer had decided he needed to have some actual punishment, and actually increased what I had recommended from 1 week of losing his phone privileges, basically a non-punishment, to 3 weeks of losing everything. No phone, no ordering food, no visitation. He must have really peeved that hearing officer off, but hey, them's the breaks. Putting the issue in writing when another prisoner called you out and demanded that you write it down shows your ability to enforce the rules and not let violators feel impunity. It shows that you have authority, and that there are consequences for breaking the rules. Subscribe, click the like button if you want to support the channel. Thank you for watching.